So I've said this before, but the quality of your communication, I believe, matters more than the actual words that you use and how you deliver information. How you communicate is incredibly important. Here's the team discussing how they can improve it. The quality of your communication matters more than you ever even consider of what you say. When you sound on an equal footing, when you sound on an equal par, when you sit at the table with your prospects and your clients and you communicate in a way that they communicate, that commands respect. Because when you sound like a brand new, straight into the market individual, your brand has to be incredible for you to be able to rely on that. People at Russell Reynolds, Spencer Stewart, Heidrick and Struggles can communicate as they possibly like because they have a phenomenal brand behind them. You can argue whether, based on our experience of working their searches that they can't fill, whether they deliver, but they've got a phenomenal brand. When you communicate, like we've just seen on the video there, yeah, hi, how you doing? Yeah, I'm right. I had somebody do it to me yesterday. Somebody cold called me about working here and, well, first he tried to sell me something and then decided to go, well, actually I'm based in Leeds and I'm also an experienced recruiter. Would you consider moving? I was like, oh, you must be really enjoying your job, selling me your bullshit. And the first thing he said was, hi Alex, it's, can't remember his name. How are you? And I was just like, yeah, who's calling? What are you ringing me for? Didn't say what company it was, just said, hi, it's John. How are you? Right? When we go, hi, is that Alex? I always answer the phone with, you through to Alex. Hi, is that Alex? Yeah, I've just said it. You're not listening to me. Right? That level of communication immediately, oh God, how good is this person? How good is this person's communication? John, it's Alex from Raw Selection, executive search firm. We haven't spoken previously. Straight into the conversation. So there's that element of what you're saying. When you put under pressure, right? That level of communication will fail you on your prospects, with your retainer pitches, with your contingent searches, with your candidates to build gravitas. That element of your game is an area that everybody can work on. We've all heard my calls, and if you haven't gone training when I've learned all the way through, when I've not been fully switched on, when I've not been in a peak state on that call, and I've not got it right. And then there's examples on there as well of where I've absolutely nailed it. So it's the same person, same scenario, same questions, same proposition. But if we're not in that peak state when we're going into those calls and discussions, and we're not ready to have a really, really good conversation, where we're positioning ourselves on an equal level to them, we demonstrate and ooze confidence on that call, you will fail with those conversations. You may get through because they've heard the podcast and have followed me. They may get through because they've worked with a firm previously. You may get through because they've done X, Y, and Z. You may get through because that job's really attractive and that's what they want. But with the difficult people, you will not get through to them. You will not have a good conversation and they will usher you off the phone. And the first thing you'll do when you put the phone down, that person's, they're so rude, right? It's really easy to blame the prospect. Really easy. It's your ability to be able to sell to that prospect. And I've done it. I've come off and now, he's an absolute weapon, right? But it's my ability to be able to sell, engage, and have a conversation with that individual. Some people are just fair enough, but your ability to be able to engage and sell to that individual. And that ability to be able to communicate at the same level as them. If you listen to people like Jordan Belfort speak, if you listen to people like Grant Cardone when he's on stage speaking in front of tens of thousands of people, how they communicate, they're not scared, they're not terrified, they're used to it. It's the same reason why we get you to do vacancy videos. No one's ever placed a job off a bloody vacancy video. But if you go back to the first videos that we did at Raw Selection when I was on first on camera, and versus the conversations and videos that we do now, there is a whole fundamental world of difference. And it's because I practiced. The same scenario with the podcast. The same scenario with anything. Where you've practiced. How scared were you to do a candidate interview when you first started? Terrified. How scared were you to do the candidate capture calls? It's the first thing you get them to do. And if I ask you, go away and do 50 candidate capture calls, you'd be like, Well, that's not scary. So practice. But how you communicate on them is important. When you do videos and you go through, we're not preparing you to be the best vacancy video person. We're preparing you to be on camera, be able to communicate on camera, and being able to engage with the audience to win, potentially, to then share content in the future that could be the bit that wins you the business. Okay, that could be the bit that, I've absolutely seen you before because I see all the content that you put out. I actually see all the vacancies you put out, so I already know who you are. I already know what you stand for. I kind of know what you're at. We did 2 calls last week, I think it was Ollie, and the first thing, the client said, are you, this is Private Equity Podcast, I can see it in the background, that's you guys. I was like, Alex Rawlings, was it, I can't remember what he said, was it just, I already know who you guys are, I listen to the podcast, right? Immediately, that person's like, I'm speaking to somebody that I already know. I've never heard of that person ever, right? So they're in a different scenario where they know more about me than I know about them. But the only way you can do that is by being confident and self-assured and being able to communicate well, both on your call but also in your content that you produce. And the more content that you put out, the more people have got chances of seeing you, the more opportunities you're going to have to be able to win business from those people, to be able to have gravitas, win those individuals, and share it. You imagine how many connections you had when you first started, how many connections you've got now. What they may see from you is Alex Bailey putting LinkedIn posts out for you, but do they see you putting content? Some of you have created content around this room, but some of you haven't. So that level of knowledge and expertise. But if we come back to that prospect call, that's such an important element with both a candidate, with a prospect, and with a client, that you can hold your own and you can communicate at that state without having to really think about it and just being like, right, prospect call, bang. I'm in that mode. It can push me back. I don't get put off. If I do get put off, I think about it. I come off the call and go, how could I have done that better? Bang. It was a call that I did with a healthcare private equity firm and low middle market, and I just knew when I came off the call, I was like, I've not performed as well there. I just knew it. So I reflected on it, looked at it, and then the next call I did was a ton better because I thought about how I communicated, I thought about what I said, and I thought about why I got thrown out. And that level of progression and development, if you listen back to your calls and you all the way through, you don't pause, you interrupt the prospect, you don't have a good conversation with them, then you need to work on your game for that. I can tell you now, there's not one person around this table, me included, that doesn't need to improve that level of communication, right? And you're playing against somebody who's maybe had 20, 30 years experience in this. And they may not be as good, but they've got 20, 30 years of someone seeing their face. And if someone's been in business for 20, 30 years, you think, do you know what, actually, they might be good. Who would you rather work with? A lawyer who's just qualified, or a lawyer who's been in business for 20 to 30 years? I'd rather work with a better lawyer, but the better lawyer would suggest is 20 to 30 years of experience. It might be they're actually lazy, they miss out on things, they don't get things right, and that's why they're really cheap. And actually the person who's just qualified, both their parents are lawyers, and they've been doing this since they were 10 years old, and they were practicing, stood in front of whoever in a court of law or whatever. We've been reading stuff since then. So we never know, but you'll go with a person with more experience because you think, well, if they were rubbish, they probably wouldn't be in a job anymore. Okay? So I want everybody to think about how can they improve their level of communication on the calls that they're running through. Consistent message, I know I've spoken about this before, but it's such an important element.